What's up, you guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is brought to you by NordVPN, which a lot of you have probably heard me rave about NordVPN in a video before. But if you're not aware of what NordVPN is, it is a virtual private network that helps you protect your identity and all of your personal data while you're browsing online. So basically exactly what you're doing right now while watching this video. We often think that from the privacy of our own phones or our own laptops or the privacy of our own home or even just using our personal devices while out using public Wi-Fi that all of our information stays private to us. But unfortunately, the reality is that hackers have found a lot of ways to get all of that personal information. Things like our passwords that we have saved or any of our credit card information that we've saved. And right now, our tax information is kind of out there in the internet for a lot of us. So that means social security number. NordVPN has no data logging, double data encryption to protect your information even better, and 24/7 customer service to ensure that all of your personal data stays in your hands and nobody else's. Whether you're browsing the web at home, or if you're traveling, or if you're just working at a local coffee shop, you are protected. It's user-friendly with a Chrome browser extension, so protecting all of this information is as easy as a couple of clicks and then you are good to go. And you can also have 6 simultaneous connections so that all of your different devices are covered. NordVPN is offering my subscribers 70% off a membership, making it only $3.49 per month to protect all of your personal data. And not to be dramatic or anything, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys probably spend that almost daily on Starbucks. At least I do. Maybe I'm just calling myself out. And in honor of NordVPN's 8th birthday, if you buy a 3-year plan, not only will you receive 1 month free, but you'll also get a surprise gift from NordVPN. And I don't know about you guys, but personally on my birthday, I don't normally give people gifts. I'm usually the one getting the gifts, so that is absolutely amazing. It's a deal you guys do not want to miss. So if you guys want to start taking your internet safety seriously and protecting all of your personal data while browsing online, all you have to do is go to nordvpn.com/Danielle and use code Danielle. And a huge thank you again to NordVPN. Now, let's jump into today's video. So today we are going to be talking about Patti Krieger. It's either Kreiger or Kreiger. I couldn't quite figure that out. But it's an interesting one, you guys, and it's one that I've been looking into for a little bit of time, trying to figure out what on earth is going on. It is incredibly sketchy. There's unfortunately not a lot of information about her disappearance online. Most of the information came straight from a family-run website. There's also a Facebook page, and there's also, I think, like a small handful of articles that are still left up. But since a lot of my information did come straight from her family, the website that was made, I just kind of want to lay that out here because they have a pretty strong theory as to what happened to her. So I don't want this video to seem biased or like I'm leaning a certain way or another. This is just quite literally the only information that I was personally able to find. Patti Krieger was 65 years old when she went missing on Sauk Mountain in Washington on October 2nd, 2010. Now, I don't know a whole lot of information about Patti necessarily, not a lot about her past, but from what I have seen, she was known to be an amazing woman. Everyone that was in contact with her said that she had the largest heart. She was such a reliable person. She was just sweet to the core. She was a great friend. She was a great mother, just an overall amazing person to have in your life. Patti had married the love of her life, Jason Graham, in June of 2000, and they were perfect for each other. I saw nothing but love from everyone about their marriage, about their relationship. Jason had such a gentle heart like Patti did. He was such a devoted partner. He was always very dedicated to everything that he did in life, including his real estate business, which meant a whole lot to him. He always worked so hard and he was willing to drop anything and do anything for anyone. But most of his life, unfortunately, he struggled with a lot of health issues, and in 2006, he unexpectedly passed away. This obviously devastated Patti because she had such an amazing and strong relationship with Jason. They did absolutely everything together, and she lost her life partner. But shortly after Jason's death, another man came into the picture, and he was kind of like this knight in shining armor. It was a 45-year-old man named Larry Presley. Larry claimed to be an acquaintance of Jason's. and he had actually been incarcerated at the time of Jason's death. Now, when he got out of jail, the first thing he did was find Patti. And I have no idea if Patti knew him. It doesn't sound like she did, but he just kind of showed up and said, hey, I'm friends with Jason, and when he passed away, he told me that I needed to take care of you. So this was kind of a strange situation. And Larry also had a very extensive criminal history. I mean, he had just, gotten out of jail. But this also just seemed like very, very odd timing for him to pop up because Jason had just passed away. Patti and Jason had multiple luxury cars together. It was very obvious that they were very well off and they had rental properties, and he had such a great real estate business that was doing really well. And Patti, on top of that, had been left all of this when Jason passed away. And she also was about to retire herself, which meant retirement checks were going to come in. So it was kind of a strange situation. I don't know if Patti realized this to begin with, but Patti was just very, very excited. She saw a good-looking younger man that was interested in her, and she agreed to go on a date with him, and it even seemed like more of a fairy tale because she wanted their first date to be at her church, and he agreed to this. And everything went great. He seemed like an amazing guy at first. He was very well spoken, very respectful, but unfortunately it wasn't too long before Patti started to see a shift, I guess you could say. Larry stopped being the great guy that he presented himself as almost entirely. Patti had bought herself a new Harley and he just drove it around as if it were his own. He was kind of just being very disrespectful to her and her belongings. They ended up, I believe, living together pretty quickly. He just essentially treated anything that was hers as if it was his. And he started to also completely lose this whole respectful show that he was putting on. And he was very disrespectful to her, very disrespectful to pretty much anyone that he came in contact with. There was an incident one time when they went to the mall, and for no reason, he just started yelling at this group of people, and this huge scene broke out. He was threatening to fight them. It was just a disaster, and Patti was like, I'm too old for this. Like, I don't know what this guy's doing. This is not how I thought he was when I first met him. But she still really cared for him, and she was probably still grieving a lot and missing that connection with someone after her husband passed away, so she stayed with him. And then things only got worse. He was a convicted felon, so he was not supposed to have a gun. And one day she was going through the saddlebags of her Harley that pretty much he had taken over as his own, and she found a gun in there, and she confronted him about it and said, you need to get rid of this. I don't want this, anywhere near me, have anything to do with me. And he said that he would, but still things kept happening, and she just started to feel so used. One by one, Larry's friends started to just start living on her property. They would bring their trailers, park their trailers on her land, like their campers, things like that, and just live there. Some of them even moved into her actual home. They kind of just took over her property. But unfortunately, she was so used to being such a helpful person, and that's who her husband was. So she was trying to do the best and help everyone, but all of these boundaries were being overstepped. And then one day, things totally hit the fan. There was a shed on Patti's property that she didn't normally go in, and everyone that lived there knew she didn't go in it. Larry knew that she didn't go in it, but she, I guess, was curious about something, thought something was going on maybe, and she went back to the shed and ended up finding a false wall. And when she looked behind this false wall, she found a bunch of marijuana. She confronted Larry, who apologized about everything, and yet again, just like the gun, promised to get rid of it, but Patti lost her trust in him yet again, because while it was gone, she ended up finding yet another gun in his possession. So at this point, she'd had enough, and she began to confide a lot in her coworkers. She spoke a lot about her struggles with Larry, about how they just did not have a healthy relationship. She said that they weren't intimate. He claimed that he was, unable to do any of that, if picking up what I'm throwing down, which turned out to be very false because it was then found out that he was just sleeping with other women. She talked about how angry he always was and how mean that he was and how she felt like she was being used. And her friends and coworkers obviously were very upset about this because she had already gone through so much and she didn't need someone like Larry showing up and doing all this to her, especially when the whole reason he showed up was because Jason said to take care of her. So all of her friends told her to get the heck out of the relationship. She needed to leave it. She needed to stop being with him, kick him out, and just continue on with her life. But no one's really sure, because I don't think Patti ever said anything to anyone, but everyone assumes that she at this point just felt like she was stuck and she could not get out of this relationship. She was scared about what he would do. So instead of leaving him, she stayed, and she just stopped talking to her coworkers about Larry at all. She completely shut down, wouldn't bring him up, wouldn't speak about anything up until a month before she disappeared. She was at work and she was filling up her gas and talking to some coworkers, and she said to them that she believed that Larry was going to try to kill her. And I don't know what her reasoning was behind this. I don't know if she even gave one, but this brings us to her disappearance. October 3rd, 2010, Patti did not show up for her 4 a.m. shift at her job, and she had been the ideal employee for 30 years. She was always very reliable, so everyone knew that her not showing up for work, plus the circumstances, plus the fact that she had told a coworker, "I think this man's trying to kill me," they obviously panicked and immediately went to her son, and her son decided to go stop by her house to try to figure out what was going on. But the situation he walked into was bizarre, to say the least. First of all, he was greeted by quite a few angry guard dogs, which was kind of an alarming sign to him, and he was also greeted by Larry and a handful of Larry's friends. They informed him that Patti had actually gone missing the night before on Sauk Mountain. They even said that they had already reported her missing, but no one had ever contacted her family about it. So her son was really, really confused. Larry was in possession of her car keys. Larry was in possession of her ID. And then one of his friends that were at the house, they were in possession of her cell phone. The whole situation just screamed that something wasn't right. So from this point on, Patti's son was finally able to get in contact with police to figure out what on earth was going on, because no one had contacted them. They didn't understand why authorities wouldn't call them. And this is kind of when the story starts to unfold. Larry had told authorities that on the 2nd of October, which was a Saturday, that he decided he wanted to have a ceremony for his parents that had passed away months prior, like months and months prior. They were both cremated, and he wanted to spread their ashes on Sauk Mountain. So that Saturday, a whole group went to the mountain together. It included Patti, it included Larry, Patti's gigantic 100-pound Rottweiler bear was there, James Presley, Troy Robinson, Troy's girlfriend Nicole Gardner, Chrissy Bumgarner, and Matt Robinson. Now, most of these people were related to Larry. I think the women were possibly just girlfriends, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, it was Larry and his whole group of people close to him, and then there was Patti. According to Larry and the entire group, everything was fine. They went to the mountain and they had the ceremony, and then afterwards, suddenly Patti became very emotional, which I could understand. Maybe it triggered thoughts of her husband. I can completely see that. And they said that when she became emotional, she split off from the group with Bear, her dog, and went down another trail. Now, they said that they screamed to her repeatedly, asking her where she was going, what she was doing, but she, despite being in earshot, just didn't respond to them. So they decided to just keep on going down the trail. No one thought to follow her, try to go with her, and they said that they assumed the trails would eventually meet back together down at the base of the mountain where the parking lot was, and they would be reunited with her. But unfortunately, when they got down to the bottom of the mountain and the trail was done, Patti was nowhere to be found, Bear was nowhere to be found, and for some odd reason, none of them decided to wait for her. Now, I don't know if they all rode together or, separate cars. I don't know if Patti drove herself. This throws in obviously so many questions about why anyone had her ID and her keys and her phone, but it was just strange. They all just decided to leave instead of search for her. Larry and a few of the others went to a local gas station. They grabbed burritos, they grabbed some beer, and then one of the other hikers decided to go to the grocery store. And then finally, about 4 hours after all of this happened, Larry finally decided to report Patti as missing. But when he went to report her as missing, all the hikers and everyone went with him, from what I'm understanding, and they all claimed to be her family, which is why none of her actual family was ever alerted to her disappearance. At this point, authorities knew this was a bad situation, and they had already put together search and rescue teams to go and search Sauk Mountain for Patti. She was physically fit. She was 65 years old, but she was very physically fit. She was training for a marathon. She'd already done previous marathons. But the one thing that she wasn't used to was hiking. It was not something she was skilled at, familiar with. She also had not dressed for what the temperatures had been at since she was last seen. The trails also were quite difficult. They were very narrow. There were portions where it was very easy to slip and fall or twist your ankle. And they believed it was very possible she could have hurt herself on that trail, or maybe an animal got to her since she was by herself, or there were just so many different possibilities. So over 50 searchers showed up to the mountain. There were 4 different counties that were involved that came together to search for Patti, and they searched everywhere they possibly could, and they found nothing, not even the smallest hint as to what could have happened, where she could have gone. They obviously knew the trail she went down. If any attack or anything had happened, you would think they would have seen blood or some sign of a struggle, but they found absolutely nothing. So they decided the following day to bring in a helicopter with infrared because it had not been very long since she was last seen, and it was very possible they could get a heat signature from her. And my thoughts as well are, if anything happened to her, Bear would have stuck with her. And even if she had passed away and her body temperature had cooled down a lot, Bear would have lit up. This is a gigantic Rottweiler. They would have seen it, but unfortunately, they still managed to find nothing. Patti's friends, family, coworkers, they all showed up as well to search on foot. But at this point, authorities notified the family they didn't think that Patti was still on the mountain. They actually had reason to believe that she did, in fact, leave. At some point during all these searches, they had also brought in dogs, and they tracked Patti's set up the mountain and then all the way back down to the parking lot. So they believed it was more possible that she left and something happened after that than her actually being stuck up on the mountain. This really started pushing Patti's family to become suspicious of what Larry and all of the other hikers were saying, because it already wasn't making a whole lot of sense and it seemed a little bit bizarre, and everyone knew that Larry didn't seem to be a great person. And one of the women in the group was interviewed by, I think, 2 separate reporters right after all of this happened, and she gave 2 completely different stories of what actually happened that day. They also allegedly didn't help search at all. At least I know Larry did not help, according to what Patti's family has said, and he even seemed irritated that anyone was looking for her or coming to him with any information in regards to her disappearance. They believed at this point, yes, this is sketchy, but this is someone that should care for Patti. You would think he would want to be updated. So her family went to him and said, here we go. We're starting this Facebook page to help find her. And they assumed he'd be on board and wanting to help with this, but instead, this for some reason made him verbally aggressive towards them. It caused this huge uproar. He was infuriated that they came to him with any information, and thankfully they were able to get this recorded, but it was just a very odd reaction to the situation. And the same exact day that they came to him with this, he randomly decided to move out of Patti's house. After he moved out of Patti's house, the family still kept tabs on him, and a lot of people around the town that were Patti's friends or coworkers said that in the time between her disappearance and when he moved out, he had been driving all of her luxury cars around town. He was basically living his best life in her house with her money, with all of her expensive things. He had not been allowing any of her family on the property. He wouldn't let anyone inside the house. So they actually had to end up getting a court order to even go inside the home. And when they went in there, things were shocking. The entire house was trashed. Completely trashed. There were beer cans everywhere, trash everywhere, things thrown everywhere. It was strange because there were titles to, I believe, all of Patti's cars just laying out on the counter. Her safe had been gone through, and her deposit box where her money was had been completely emptied out. So now her family is thinking there's something so wrong here. They believed it was very possible that she had been, killed or forced to disappear because of her money and all the things that she had. Her family decided to go ahead and move all of the cars that were on her property to a safe location, and because at this point they were worried that these cars were about to be stolen. I mean, all the titles were laying out on the counter, her money was stolen, and then interestingly enough, the same day that this happened, the house that the cars were put at was involved in a drive-by shooting. You guys, I cannot make this stuff up. It's sketchy. And then, randomly, 26 days after Patti disappeared, Bear was located. Bear was found wandering on Sauk Mountain Road between milepost 3 and 4. He wasn't in the best condition, definitely malnourished, definitely, had been through some things, but he was still alive. And it was so strange that he was in kind of the same location weeks later, but still there was no sign of Patti. Searches continued, and every single tip possible was followed up. And meanwhile, Larry was just kind of going on about his life like absolutely nothing happened. And as I said, Patti's family was keeping tabs on him at this point because they were very suspicious of his possible involvement. He ended up being arrested shortly after this for assaulting a police officer. And because of this, his new home with his new wife, Donica, that he married less than a year after Patti disappeared, the house was searched, and they found drugs. They found tons of stolen weapons. They found the gun of a homicide victim, which is very unsettling. And because of this, he ended up being given a sentence of 3 years. But he also pushed all of this stuff and completely threw his new wife Donica under the bus, and she ended up with 12 years. This led her to be pissed. She was able to come off drugs while she was incarcerated. She was able to think about what had happened. And, before he even met Donica, he had apparently gotten another woman pregnant. He just kind of was bouncing around from woman to woman, using them and then throwing them under the bus. And she was not happy about it. So she decided to hand her power of attorney over to a close friend of hers. And she instructed this close friend to go to the home that she shared with Larry and go through all of her things. And while her friend was doing this, she found something that was disturbing. There was a backpack of Larry's that was found, and it is thought to be the same exact backpack that he had with him the day that he was on Sauk Mountain. And it appeared that this backpack was covered in blood. This backpack was immediately given to Patti's son, and he immediately turned it over to authorities. But unfortunately, I have absolutely no idea what was ever done with this. But I feel like if something had happened with this, because I believe this happened in 2012 or 2013, that something would have come from it at this point. Now, since then, there have been fake ransom emails sent to the family, which has just been heartbreaking. Someone that referred to themselves as the keeper said some very disturbing and disgusting things to her family. They were able to find out that this was a big scam, just trying to get money, but that's still just something emotionally that nobody should ever have to go through. They also received a lot of tips, police and the family, that Patti had been murdered by Larry and all of the hikers and put in a body of water on 18th Street in Mount Vernon, Washington, which was actually less than a mile away from her home. So if she did in fact make it down off the mountain and was driven somewhere and something happened then, that would kind of make sense. Patti's family and friends decided to search this particular area. They searched in the water. There unfortunately was a lot of trash, a lot of debris, a lot of greenery in this area, and they left no stone unturned in 2011, but they ended up finding absolutely nothing. Now, authorities are saying there is still no evidence of foul play. There really isn't. There's absolutely nothing but this very strange story from Larry and all of the hikers. I have seen that she was legally declared deceased, but regardless of all of this, her family still wants answers. And considering the bizarre actions of the people that were around her when she disappeared, it's just too unsettling for them to sit back and think that it was just an accident. So this kind of brings us to the theories. Obviously, the biggest one, what the family believes and what I've seen a lot of online, is that the hikers and Larry are somehow involved. Their behavior is bizarre. I'm not going to deny that. And for Larry to randomly pop up when she inherited all of these cars, these rental properties, this money, was about to retire, and then he immediately started mooching off of her by moving in and taking advantage of her kindness, probably run some sort of illegal drug and gun business. it's just kind of sketchy. And I find it interesting that right as she started to confront him about all this and find all of this information out, all of a sudden she's telling her coworkers that she thinks he's going to kill him. Makes me wonder if she maybe threatened to tell authorities, or if he realized that, you know, maybe she wasn't going to put up with his crap as much as he thought she would. It's definitely very, very scary. It's also odd to a lot of people that he randomly decided to go and take his parents' ashes months after they both passed away. And then the first thing that probably pops into my head are her keys, phone, and ID. And my thinking when it comes to this, I kept asking myself, you know, why would someone want to take those things? Like, why would they have those things? Those aren't items that you would just kind of give to someone. It's very strange that, you know, one of the random friends had her cell phone. You know, maybe if it was Larry that had all the items, I could think maybe she just gave them to him while they were hiking and she didn't want to carry them. But then I kind of go to, okay, if you want to make sure someone stays stranded or can't leave or go anywhere, you take their keys. If you want to make sure that no one can call for help, you take their phone. If you want to make sure that a body can't be identified, you take their ID. And that alone puts hair up on the back of my neck. I would love to know their reasoning, or how they even explain to anyone why they had all of these items. Again, I just don't think that's something that she would have just handed over. And then there's the obvious thing of, why in the heck would you leave a 65-year-old woman up on a mountain when you know you're her only ride home and you have her phone? So it's not like she can call you and tell you, hey, come and pick me up. It's just not adding up, you guys. There's obviously also still some chance that, you know, maybe they did just suck, and I'm not even going to be nice about it, and they left her to go and eat food and drink beer and decided to come back for her later. So let's say that is the scenario and they're just not really great friends and boyfriends. Let's say she came down the mountain and she realized she had nobody. There's no telling who would have passed by. Maybe she thought she could get a ride from someone, and then maybe that person did something to her. But again, that would be a crazy crime of opportunity. Not to say that crimes of opportunity don't happen. It's actually scary how often they happen. But it just doesn't seem as likely. And again, especially because the whole group of hikers had all of her belongings. Police have stated that they don't believe she was still on the mountain. So the chance that she hurt herself or anything like that happened and they somehow managed to miss her, especially with an infrared and especially with Bear possibly sticking around her or at least being in the area, I agree with them. I just don't think she was there anymore. I think she left. I think it's very possible that either she left with this group of hikers and this whole mountain thing became a cover-up, because what better way to get police searching in the wrong area for too long than pretending the person got lost on a mountain? Honestly, I have no idea what to think. I just think that the whole entire group of hikers and Larry are very, very sketchy, and it's heartbreaking and unfortunate because she seemed like such an amazing person and she was just trying to feel love again after her husband passed away, and it makes me sick to my stomach to think that there are people out there that could take advantage of someone like that. So let me know what you guys think down below. What do you think is the most possible theory? Are you seeing something that I'm not seeing and that authorities aren't seeing? I see no recent activity at all in this case, but it's very scary knowing that these people could potentially be involved and they're all out there just staying quiet. There's been a lot of rumors because Larry, I believe, is even still in jail, or the last that I saw, he was incarcerated. Everyone from that entire group has stuck together. One of the women ended up ending her own life. That scares me because what if she was scared into being quiet and she felt like that was her only option of escape? That bothers me a whole lot. There's also the fact that Larry also gave one of the men there his prize show car, and a lot of people believe that was hush money to keep him quiet. Another individual, the other male, is actually living in his home, or was living in his home while he was incarcerated to take care of it. It's just a weird, twisted situation that's going on here. But that's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you, like always, for taking the time out of your day to listen to Patti's story. Make sure you share this information everywhere that you possibly can, because it's very possible if this many people were involved, someone slipped. Someone could have told information to someone. Someone may have heard something, saw something. There's absolutely no telling. And if things like drugs and money and guns and everything like that are involved, people will rat each other out pretty dang quick to get something that they want. So at the very least, they could bring Patti home, figure out where she might have been put if this is a homicide situation, and they can lay her to rest properly and have some sort of closure, because it's been 10 years and they have absolutely nothing. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to become a part of the Hallan fam so we can hopefully bring them home together, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.